This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
We are 16 games into a 45-match mid-year series, and perhaps the most exciting element of what we're witnessing isn't the rugby itself, but the discovery, the brand new tastes and questions being answered. What does a Joe Schmidt Wallaby team look like? Do Test Rugby's most experienced managers, Warren Gatland and Eddie Jones, both over 25 years into their international careers, still have it? How do France smell without their stars? Can Chile, Uruguay, Portugal all kick on after great World Cups? How close are Spain to the big teams? Can Canada still field a 15 with the numbers turning down calls from professional living stealer Kingsley Jones? Are Ireland worthy of rising above that number 2 spot? And perhaps most fascinating of all, can Razor Robertson now bring his unique brand of domination over to the Test arena successfully? On Saturday, the man I don't think anybody's ever called Scott took on England in the first Test in charge of the All Blacks. And whilst all eyes were on Razor, Steve Borthwick's squad took it upon themselves to offer not discovery, but a reminder. The men's Red Roses are a serious team. The result was a brilliant full-blooded test match to start the summer series. Physicality through the roof as nothing but the finest margins separated white and black. Contrast key in a game between two sides desperate to establish themselves at the top of the world's table. So how did England push New Zealand so hard? What took the All Blacks to their first win under Razor? And can Angleterre go 1, maybe even 2 points better in next weekend's second Test? Saturday's bunch of smashing into each other a bunch is one of those rare games where once the last play heartbreak passes, both teams should really be pretty happy with how the match went, with how both sides played. The nature of rugby union meant one team emerged as the victor, but this game had major draw energy, much more than the previous game between them, which ended as a draw. 2 tries apiece, with kickable penalties and 50-50 jack was the difference between winning and losing, for two teams executing new workway styles to an extremely high level. And yet, the reasons for the pleasing are very different amongst both sides. England went into this year's Six Nations a somewhat unknown quantity. The gap between their best and worst performers in 2023 was so vast you didn't know what to expect, probably bigger than any other team in the world. But over the Six Nations, a style of play has started to standardise alongside an expectation in their performances. The Steve Borthwick game plan is built on, quite simply, doing the things that work every time. No attack that only opens up against teams who don't blitz, or a kicking game that gets screwed if the opposition fullback has a bigger boot than a 20-foot car. Borthwick is starting simple and building outwards, building on top of those reliable, robust foundations. The most pleasing thing about Saturday wasn't how close they came, but how those simple, repeatable processes and principles so almost gave England rugby's holy grail, an away win against the All Blacks, something they haven't achieved in over 20 years. As covered countless times, the biggest change for England this year is their defence, with ex-Bok coach Felix Jones attempting to implement a South Africa-style aggressive press focused on shutting down these forward channels, the kind of front immediate positions, denying the opposition any front football, and hence making it impossible to start anything meaningful attack if you're always going backwards. This succession of phases is a near perfect example. New Zealand going backwards phase on phase, England's disruption of the ruck forcing extra forwards in constantly, preventing them setting up any kind of formal attacking shape. The All Blacks are always going to have to kick straight sooner or later, and so they go, well, we might as well give the chip a chance. Lieutenant Furbank, who was unbelievable, recovering it and setting out on his kamikaze route before squeezing a penalty out of the All Blacks at the following ruck. This is exactly the result England are looking for, an all or nothing option that results in England penalty possession. If you can shut down an All Black attack, just as they did to Ireland in the Six Nations, you can probably shut down anyone. But the most impressive thing about their defence isn't the pressure they can apply, but the fail-safes and durability they're building in. They're improving since the Six Nations, all thanks to one subtle little shift in emphasis since March. The Bok defence is built on uses all 15 players equally, but there are 2 really important critical forward roles in the setup that allow it all to click together. What I'll call the Etzebeth, the player flying up line here to make these big shots, and the Khaleesi, the safety blanket who, the moment the ball passes him, width-wise, the moment the ball gets wide, he hairs it for the corner, looking to chase, cover any space out wide, frequently leading to moments like this. In the Six Nations, England deployed the world-class Mario Itoje in the first role, in the Etzebeth role, and he was brilliant at it, catching so many behind the gain line, and a back rower in the Khaleesi role. This summer, however, England have changed that, shifting chop tackle king Sam Underhill into the Etzebeth role and sliding Itoje one out to become their Khaleesi, and the result was pretty monumental, strengthening both positions. Underhill may be a yard slower out the blocks than Itoje, but his lack of regard for his own safety meant he was able to get men to ground so much sooner, flying at ankles and knees left, right and centre, and it brought Itoje's game up a further entire gear. This is the first play of the game, and knowing what's coming, the All Blacks look to get outside England, outside the Etzebeth shoot-up. It's a really smart play, yet simple enough to run with relatively few bodies, evident of how much thought Razor has clearly put into the game. A pod of forward sets here, they're flat on each other smartly to slow Underhill, as Tuaplotu could feasibly tip onto anyone. DMAC is in the boot and instead takes the ball, drawing Underhill's fire. Papali'i here, however, waits really smartly, standing his ground. England, like South Africa, use a winger to cover a lot of space, chase in and harry the man, and Papali'i just gets in his way, blocking him from drifting at all to catch Ioane. Faber-Bosa does frankly a really good job, but he loses 2 seconds maybe out of his chase. However, he gets across, and check how hard England have drifted to shut down the space for Taylor the moment he catches the ball, forcing him to cut in field, right into, you guessed it, the Khaleesi himself, Maro Itoje, who rips the ball and wins it back for England to play, once again giving it to goddamn Lieutenant Furbank, the kamikaze pilot who rules the skies. Or here, after a half break-off turnover ball, England reset and watch how fast Underhill is to get off the line and shut it down. And even though the next phase looks like the All Blacks make ground, England have got up so fast, they've actually caught the All Blacks behind the gain line. New Zealand have lost about 2 yards from the previous phase. Itoje this whole time has drifted across just in case anybody cuts back in, and it allows him to be guard on this ruck. It's quick ball and England aren't numbered up, so Barrett puts Ioane away down the wing, but Itoje keeps working. Marcus Smith makes a brilliant tackle. He's such an underrated defender, and Itoje instantly senses opportunity and locks onto the ball. Perinara resorts to an illegal neck roll to clear him out, and it gifts England the penalty, the turnover. And yet, for a team like New Zealand and a coach like Scott Robertson, this defence is not so much a problem, but a question. It's something to be solved. Robertson admitted post-game he basically tore up his plans pre-match around the 37-minute mark as the English defence was just shutting them down time after time. We can see Razor's initial plan executed to perfection in the build-up to the opening try scored by human man Sevu Reece. This is a 15-phase score, the like of which we haven't seen for a few years, and it's built off raw pace, but with accuracy. The idea is simple. Get outside that aggressive shooter role, the Etzebeth, and do it so they can't set it up again for the following phase. This passage starts after a fantastic maul, but after Taylor's carry, England reset quickly enough for Itoje to catch the second carrier behind the gain line. But the All Blacks are just beginning. Geordie Barrett charges at the space just outside Underhill, also looking to ride the tackle of George Martin, filling the Khaleesi role for Itoje on the floor. Barrett's got options all around him, prompting Ollie Lawrence to bite in just in case he drops the ball off to Ioane. So the ball is then rapid and a superb move comes. An arrowhead pod is set here with Surveyor, so Earl gets into Etzebeth position looking to shoot up, but instead the All Blacks hit Taylor, who slings it out the back to Mackenzie on a big arc, totally outside Earl, giving him plenty of time and drawing the winger up here to get Taylor into space. England's resources are incredibly stretched, and whilst their line speed is fantastic over the next few phases, they don't have the raw players to contest a breakdown, and it allows for lightning fast ball time after time, because England just focus on getting the men on the feet to shoot up. Mackenzie eventually slinging a seed right out to the other wing, Reece making significant ground before the Khaleesi's catch him up. All the England forwards congested. Itoje and Earl, their most important players to fill that Khaleesi role, off their feet, leaving Will Stewart, the slowest player on the field, in that catch-up position, the critical role for making their defence infallible. Speed is more important than accuracy here, and whilst Mitchell does really well, Taylor spins out the tackle, and Stewart, overcompensating for his lack of pace, has drifted past him, drifted too far. Martin makes it up and makes a desperation tackle, but the absence of Itoje has created a vacuum, and Tuapolotu is through. With nobody in position, Perifetta picks and goes, momentum is with the All Blacks, and whilst the greatest player in the world, George Furbank, does make an utter boomfa moments later, fastball remains, and Papali'i carries really well. Stretched to the extreme, Hooker George here is now forced to fill the Etzebeth role. A front rower playing this instead of an athletic back row or a second row, but he picks the wrong man, opening a gap for Tuapolotu to carry into, well over the gain line. At this point, England have roughly set back up. Itoje is back in position, but the backs are kind of all over the shop. Fullback Furbank is over on this side, and their emergency filler Mitchell has just made the tackle. He's also on this side. So fastball means England's line speed is basically disabled. There's no one there to charge down Mackenzie, giving him the time and space to put the ball outside that winger who's looking to cover so many options at once. Without Mitchell there to back him up, the ball gets instantly outside Freeman, allowing Reece to regather and finish superbly. This is how you do it. You play so many phases with such pace, the England defence is in a constant scramble, taking players out the normal roles and forcing others who are less able to fill in, frequently weakening both positions. You tear them up and remain patient until a big play is on the cards, at which point DMAC pulls the trigger. Robertson spoke of wanting to look for far more cross kicks, but they just weren't possible because how quickly England were able to fly up and shut him down, put pressure on him. It took those 14 previous phases to open up the space by the time for Mackenzie to put in this kick. Because that's the thing. Stopping this England defence is much easier said than done. The All Blacks attempt to do exactly the same thing as he did for that try here in the only other 10 plus phase of attack in the entire game for them. They play wide right off the scrum with the really smart ploy of Severis playing 9 to up the pace. Smart. Finn Baxter here, a debutant prop, is filling the Etzebeth role. So you feel it's starting to work, they've got the players out of position, except he does a superb job catching his man behind the game and allowing Toje to come in and slow the ball down. Underhill is then perfectly in position for the next phase to shut it down, closing off the pass to Mackenzie before reloading to make another huge shot the following phase. He was phenomenal. It always is. The ball is slow, the pass is poor, New Zealand are going backwards, and it just means the defence has so much time to set. It's so much more difficult to attack. The England D is aligned before the All Black attack, and it means that even the wide balls feel forced. They're making no ground. George plays the Etzebeth role much more successfully here, and the next phase, absolutely nothing is on. It's go wide and get pushed back further, or let a big lad just get smashed. And DMAC goes, we'll let a big lad just get smashed, sending his captain to contact. Barrett gets cut off from his other forwards without anyone around having pulled out of shape, and it allows Ollie Lawrence to get over the ball and win the penalty, which Smith nails to bring the scores level for half time. Frankly, this is where the rugby calendar starts to come into effect. England have had 6 games to work on their defence, and the All Blacks just 1 on their attack, just 40 minutes at this point, and it led to one cancelling out the other pretty effectively, especially once you throw in how England's kicking game was so effective. Repeatedly, off lineouts on halfway, England ran this same set play. Benno smashing it up, and Mitchell in like a flash to hang it in the air. A central box kick with no time for the opposition to set. Because teams are focused on covering the 50-22 these days, it leaves a lot of dead space in the middle, which forces the fullback to cover an enormous amount of ground to get up, or puts them in situations like this. Mitchell dropping it right on Mackenzie with 2 chasers in position to smash him back into heck where he came from. The goal is normally to win the egg back, but if they can't, this is impossible ball for the All Blacks to play off, and yet, as the game went on, they started to find a way. We looked last week at how Scott Robertson's All Blacks might play, but the thing we didn't consider is just how adaptable they might be. In the first half, New Zealand only box kicked to exit over the full half, whilst most open field kicks were low, finding grass, turning players, looking to create counter-attacking opportunities, and there still weren't that many of them. In the second half, however, Razor changed game plan entirely. Gone was the long multi-phase, 10-plus phase approach. Pace first, out the window. In came the kicking game. Over the second half, the All Blacks had what I describe as usable possession. There'd be anything where the ball carrier has a choice on what to do. So this touch, for example, of Barrett just thumping it back under pressure wouldn't count. But, any of these examples here would, because the ball carrier has a choice, whether they pass, run, kick, whatever. So they had usable possession like that 26 times, right? 3 of them, the play ended with England giving away a penalty. Drawn, created, pressured, normally by the All Blacks. One of them was this, off turnover ball, first phase, the All Blacks go for broke until they is put into touch. The other 22 passages of possession the All Blacks had in that first half, however, they kicked the ball. Their first 3 possessions of the second half were all kicked on first or second phase, and once Bowden Barrett came on, he added an extra dimension to the tactical game, threading low kicks like this to put England under pressure. About the only thing New Zealand did kick in that second half was this penalty, with Toje and Underhill running rampant, shutting down so much. Razor worked out the best way to stop the England defence was to give them nothing to hit, and with that, England's turnover count dried up, coming down from 6 in the first half to 2 in the second. New Zealand's penalty conceded count came down drastically, and the amount of times the All Blacks went backwards on a play reduced to 0. The All Blacks were now playing the game on their own terms, patient yet happy to wait to eke out penalties, to wait for a moment to come. This, to me, felt like the biggest change in New Zealand, the biggest sign of the maturity of the Robertson era. It's a game that New Zealand possibly lose under Foster, a coach much more blasé in his belief of the All Black way, with England so able to use their kicking game to get on top. You suspect Foster, possibly, as happened against Ireland during their last tour down here, might not be so happy to change the game plan, play a different way, and try and become the team applying that pressure. And yet, England did offer more than just that defence. I often theory during the Six Nations that England's grand vision is to marry a Springbok-style defence to an Irish and flagged attack, but on the evidence this summer, it started to instead look somewhat more French. Mitchell here hangs a box kick to put NZ under pressure. Perinara replies from the back foot, sending it somewhat too long and giving England better ball to attack off than they would have from the line out. The Kiwi defence is disorganised and Smith brings God King Furbank onto the ball, who smashes it up brilliantly. And just watch here, the tiny little tap that Mitchell gives Itoje. Almost a signal not to secure the ball, not to get over it, not to lock on. Just get out the way and let me get to it. Itoje shoves Martin over the ruck, allowing Ardman's own 9 to pick up in an extremely DuPonty manner. He makes the half break and uses Faye Robosa to keep it in field. Once more, France style, popping off the floor to keep the pace up, engaging more defenders and giving Mitchell the time to get back up to his feet and play it away fast ball. Smith here is playing the Untermac role, trying to get the carry on the outside of the Kiwi defenders so he can have a go the following phase. He can wrap right round with all of these guys taken out. The kick is here absolutely on if he can angle it more for the corner. The All Black wide defence pulled up flat thanks to how many numbers Smith's last phase took out of the game, leaving nobody covering the kick on the wing. However, Smith narrowly mishits the kick, but it shows just how England are looking to open up the game. This counter-attack across the game line has become a huge part of England's attack, just as it was for France under Laurent Labide. Watch here as Mackenzie clears, the England backs work out wide to the far wing. Instantly, the moment the kick comes in, knowing this is happening, the space with the fewest Kiwi defenders, and Faye Robosa has no doubts over where he's going, sprinting to that wing, the opposite side of the field, to activate the backs. Slade carries well into New Zealand half. They play one fast phase, then Mitchell springs back into his DuPont impression. Whilst the only player in the world better than Antoine slots in at 9. Underhill makes a great last-second decision to tip on, engaging twice the defenders before playing 9 himself. Pace kept up. This is a brilliant spot then by Marcus Smith. With so many forwards on the floor, Taylor has opted to man mark Marcus and it leaves a big gap on the inside. So Smith's goal is to move that gap onto his outside. A double pump and a little step towards that space on the inside prompts Taylor to shift back inwards to cover it, moving the gap to straight in front of Chandler Cunningham South. Smith putting him right through. Baxter clears out alone and Mitchell returns from his leave of absence instantly, and this is where the island routine returns, where that part of the game comes in, hitting the same carriers over and over. Martin carries as the All Blacks still getting onside. He then hits Cunningham South, carrying Cunningham North towards the try line. Smith calls the ball and CCS sends an insane offload. Once again, France style, reducing the need for ruts, reducing the need for rucks. Underhill smashing it up. Smith carries himself, and as England set out entirely on the open side, Freeman makes a brilliant spot. Talea's eyes here are in field. He's gone, there's only one guy on this wing, there's loads of us covering, there's no way they're passing this way. And so when Mitchell picks it up, he gets caught ball watching, allowing Freeman to hit a beautiful line, sublimely at top pace. Mackenzie just about catches him and drags him down, about an inch short before Barrett catches Itoje 1 centimetre before the line. Earl is barking for the ball here, but Smith tells him no, wait, hold position. I'll tell you when it's on. A few phases later, he gives the call, pulls the trigger. Earl smashes up, and whilst he can't get the return loop past the 10, Smith reloads. There's one word to Furbank to communicate the line he wants him to run, and it's a treat. This unders line catches Geordie Barrett off guard. He's torn between who to take. He was initially for Furbank, but he's not getting the ball. It's a brilliant George Ford-esque call, and he jinks on the outside. Smith could probably score himself, but he makes sure, hitting Faye Robosa, who started it, to finish it for one of the best constructed tries of the year. Both England halfbacks, monumental, pulling the strings, but the entire team playing from a unified playbook. It's a gorgeous try and just shows what England are starting to build in attack. An interlinking system pulling the best bits from several nations and modelling themselves on one, a la their defence. Yet ultimately, this was about the only outright chance England got in that second half. New Zealand's improved kicking game stemming their momentum through an incredibly aggressive chase, led by Sevu Reece. There's little interest in competing in the air, more just flying through, flying up and smashing either the man or blocking / pressuring any return ball. And it put the All Blacks in rough control, able to eke out penalties to win the game from there. Territory becoming secondary to pressure, hang time or bounces, meaning England didn't get another kick to run off that entire second half. Scott described this as a huge lesson in Test rugby, a day of discovering how you win and how tough it can be. Ultimately, after months of asking over and over how he'll play this game, what he's going to do with the All Blacks, what his All Black team is going to look like, what style he'll deploy, it turns out the answer was the most obvious one in rugby. The style he'll play is whatever style is required to win the game. So, here's to you, Mr. Robertson. Test rugby's going to love you more than you could know. Giving us a match both teams can look back on happy, progress showing, a serious team playing a coach bedded in instantly, ready for a rematch this weekend, which promises to leave one of them, perhaps, a little bit more disappointed. Thanks for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. That is the second of an ongoing run of stuff this week. we've started a spin-off channel, a side channel, a second channel, if you will, which is going to do smaller reviews of perhaps the less exciting games, because these take a long time. We're doing the Springboks against Ireland as well. That's hopefully coming very soon. It's taking all week. It's taking all the time. So we did do a video as well on Scotland v Canada. And
yeah, we talked about Scotland, and more importantly, we really dug a little bit into what's gone wrong with Canada. Certainly we want to discuss more on the channel going forward, this channel, and more Squid Rugby. So keep an eye for that.
More Squid Rugby it's called, or Squid Rugby 2 if you want to search it on YouTube. The link is in the description. Please go and have a look at that. There's going to be more going up there, just other bits and covering other games that we can't get to in this format. But yeah, Springboks coming up very soon. We may do Wales on the other one. There's loads coming. Rugby is generally happening, and we'll see you next week for both the Springboks thing that's going to be in the next few days, and then more of this next week.
So much rugby.
How have you enjoyed your sort of week and a half that you've had here?
Oh, geez, look at that.
Look at that, mate. Disco time.
Do I need to sing now? Yeah. No, look, we love coming down here. I've got great memories of being down here in 17 and